endurance training. So now we have blood being injected out of the heart, and now we got to get that blood to flow from the heart all the way to the muscles where it's going to be used. The blood flow is dependent on a number of things. Redistribution of blood away from other tissues and to the active muscles. You want as much blood being diverted away from areas that aren't that important at the moment and going right to the skeletal muscles that are important to run. And that's one reason why on a hot, humid day, it's hard to run a long race like a marathon. Because when it's hot and humid outside, where does some of that blood go?
The skin.
The skin. Because we have two ways to cool ourselves. One is the evaporation of sweat, and the other is convection of air flowing over our body. That's why when you're on a treadmill, you lose convective cooling unless you have a fan blowing on you. You overheat very easily on a treadmill because you don't have air flowing over you. So on a very hot, humid day, some of that blood is going to go to the periphery, to the very small blood vessels underneath our skin, so we can help cool ourselves. If your body has a choice to make between holding 7-minute mile pace in a marathon or trying to cool yourself so that you don't die, what do you think your body's going to do?
Cool yourself.
Try to cool yourself so that you don't die. That's up there on the hierarchy of things that your body tries to do, is regulate body temperature. And the resistance of blood through the blood vessels. Obviously, you don't want to have much resistance because you want the blood to flow easily through the blood vessels to get to the working muscles. And then adequate dilation of the blood vessels, which is a very, very complicated thing. And it has to do with the interplay of two branches of your autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So everyone's heard of the sympathetic nervous system because that's the fight or flight. You ever hear about that? So what does the sympathetic nervous system do? Vasoconstriction? A question already?
No.
You can ask, go ahead.
It's when you relax, right?
Oh, you're putting your hand up to answer the question. I thought you were asking. Yeah, so sympathetic activity increases vasoconstriction, causes more vasoconstriction, and parasympathetic activation causes vasodilation. So another great adaptation to endurance training is you have what's called greater parasympathetic tone. So you have increased vasodilation and more blood can flow through the blood vessels. Does that make sense? And then, of course, oxygen transport capacity of the blood, which is determined by, number one, how many red blood cells you have, and what's carried inside the red blood cells. The answer's up there. Don't look. What's carried inside the red blood cells that carries oxygen? Hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is an extremely important protein. The more hemoglobin you have, the more oxygen you can carry. And the amount of myoglobin, which is basically hemoglobin that occurs inside skeletal muscle. So when hemoglobin carries oxygen in the blood vessels, it gets to the site of the muscle and it hands off, just like a relay race, it hands off that oxygen to the myoglobin. So the myoglobin transports oxygen inside the muscle. So you remember back when you were in high school and you took the SATs, and you had questions like this is to this, as this is to blank. And you had to fill in that blank. Remember that? Wasn't that a bitch? So here's a great SAT question. Hemoglobin is to blood as myoglobin is to muscle. Very good. You just got a perfect score on the SAT.